He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. I'm glad you're here. I've got a sponsor for today's show, and it's a timely one. I will mention the ask, and then we'll get into the news, which is very much related, which is coincidental in not a positive way. But the anniversary of Israel's October the 7th, 2023 terrorist attack is upon us, 2-year anniversary in just a few days. I've been thinking about it a lot. I really have, in the context of all this violence against religious communities around the West. On this day, the world will come together to honor the 1,200 souls murdered and remembered, those still held in captivity. A day to stand with family members whose grief is inconsolable. What happened 2 years ago and also unleashed attacks on Jewish people everywhere. These anti-Semitic threats, deadly acts of violence are immense and constant. That's why the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews created Flags of Fellowship, now a growing movement. Flags of Fellowship is a bold way to stand up for what you believe, a way to tangibly support the people of Israel and Jews everywhere simply by planting an Israeli flag. You can join this historic movement by giving just $25, super easy ask, to help plant flags to support the Fellowship's work of saving and rebuilding lives in Israel and wherever God's people are in need. To learn more, ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org. It's a $25 ask. And guys, these are great sponsors and partners of the show, and they're doing super important work. And I think standing boldly where so many people are cowering at this point in time, talking about God's chosen people, the Jewish community, who we love at Breitbart News and on the show. And they underwent an attack today. So we'll start there. It is Manchester, United Kingdom. We had a Yom Kippur attack. Yom Kippur is the culmination of the high holy days for Jewish community. Obviously, a lot of people are praying. It's a day of atonement, solemn day on the calendar. Mass stabbing, vehicle ramming, 2 dead, 3 wounded as we record the show today. I'm sure those numbers will go up because they don't move as quickly there. So the suspect was killed, thank God. I believe was killed by a gun, by the way. So noteworthy in a place without guns compared to America in the UK. And perhaps there's a bomb on his jacket. So we don't know for sure because they don't rush over when they think there could be a bomb in the UK. And this is a situation where it is the latest in a rash of attacks on religious communities throughout the West. Of course, that we are accustomed to seeing jihadi terror. We don't know if that's what this is yet, but based off of the images of the attacker, certainly seems like a jihadi type attack. It looks like a Middle Eastern guy. He's got a big beard, dressed in all black. He had a knife stabbing attack. Seems like the sort of thing we've been accustomed to seeing from Islamic jihadi. So I think that's what this is going to be. But overall, there's this deep demonic force residing within the West right now that is compelling people to attack religious communities. That is happening. It is a big deal. We'll continue to try to bring you details at Breitbart.com, but they're not as easily, they don't come out as quickly in the UK as they do in the United States. But the police have declared it a terrorist incident. It seems pretty obvious. Police shot the suspect, but there are at least 2 victims who were killed and others who were wounded. And this comes as we've seen a influx in Islamic migration into the West, particularly in Europe, slowly taking over the West. And we need to be on migration watch here. Now, I talked a lot about this on my Breitbart Confidential show at Breitbart.com today with Oliver Lane, who's our London bureau chief. So if you want more detail, there's a 25 minute conversation over there about this exact subject matter. But one of the things that we touch on is that I've been reflecting a lot on Charlie Kirk's tweet that Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. And, I've given this some thought, and I don't want to be quite declarative on it yet because I'm not out here to alienate Muslims who are good people, and there's plenty of good Muslims, because I do think the biggest threat to the West right now is secular leftism more than anything else. I think that's the number one threat. But I do think overall that we have to look at, we would love it if the God of the Bible, that is the Judeo-Christian God, which is where we derive our Western values, if that was preserved and amplified within our society. And we are seeing the United Kingdom seems very eager to replace itself with Islam, and that is not going great. It's not a positive overall. It's important to note that, and that's why we need to have checks on migration. And this is not to say there aren't some good Muslims, of course. That's not the point. And there's not some terrible secular leftists, because there are. That's obvious. But overall, we need to be very careful about this, because we don't want to have a great replacement, which is what we're having in the United States. We're replacing people with immigrants from all over the world, a lot of them from south of our border in particular. But in particular in Europe, we're seeing it as a mass Muslim migration wave. And you see this with these mass stabbings. That is probably what this is going to turn out to be. At the same time, we're seeing Nigel Farage, who's not, I would say, a hardcore immigration guy, but he is the anti-establishment politician in the UK. His popularity's never been higher. He's the most popular politician in the UK. By the way, you know who else is you know who's the second most politician in the UK now? A man you might have heard of. His name's Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, second most popular politician, according to recent polling data at the UK. But they want to cut his security detail. So the UK establishment, the establishment government there, they want Farage to be less safe. And that, to me, is just an invitation to try to harm the man who is leading a movement, I would say, for sanity against the insanity of not having children, abandoning God, and replacing yourselves with Islamic people, Muslim people, and seeing the results. The results are just it's not great. There is not for the people who talk about unity all the time, replacing people with people who do not want to unify is just... It just seems idiotic. So yet that's what's happening, and it's part of I think it's a bigger pattern here where we are seeing violence against Judeo-Christianity. And it's important for people to stand up, take note of this, and to fight back in lots of ways. First of all, by protecting yourself, spreading the word about it. But religious people need to be tougher. We need to be more muscular. We need to be stronger. That's why I was complaining on the show about how, even though, the church service I went to the Sunday after my friend Charlie Kirk was murdered, there was some acknowledgement of Charlie, which is probably a slight improvement over what it would have been a couple of years ago, where he probably wouldn't have been acknowledged at all. But it was very mealy-mouthed, trying to be conscientious of the people who said Charlie stood for hate, which Charlie never stood for hate. He stood for love. He was completely nonviolent. And if you play hours and hours and hours of footage of him, he goes to campus, and instead of yelling at people, he was incredibly patient and kind with people who disagree with him. It's part of why I love Charlie so much, because those of you who are watching the show, you're familiar with my voice and the way I conduct business. And there's lots of people who are much angrier and fighters who've worked for me at Breitbart News and are in our politics, who I admire because that's their way of doing things. And I'm not saying that that doesn't work sometime, but you guys see how I try to present myself. I try to present arguments in a really hardcore declarative way as best I can, but really keep it to the evidence and try to reason with people, even those who seem unreasonable, from a positive viewpoint and from trusting that they'll be open-minded people, not screaming your values at people. That was exactly what Charlie did. And yet you see, this is the discussion about Charlie still. This is a New York Times podcast hosted by Ezra Klein and this race-baiting guy named Ta-Nehisi Coates, who the left is just completely enamored with. This is him discussing Charlie Kirk. I want to play this. I've been saving this for a couple of days, but now's the perfect time to play it. Check this out.
I don't take any joy in saying this, but we sometimes soothe ourselves by pointing out that love, acceptance, warmth, that these are powerful forces. I believe they are. I also believe hate is a powerful force. I believe it's a powerful, powerful unifying force. And I think Charlie Kirk was a hate monger. I really need to say this over and over again. I have a politic that rejects violence, that rejects political violence. I take no joy in the killing of anyone, no matter what they said. But if you ask me what the truth of his life was, and the truth of his public life, I would have to tell you it's hate. I'd have to tell you it is the usage of hate and the harnessing of hate towards political ends.
One thing that's really noteworthy there is that Ezra Klein, the interviewer, who is just beloved in the institutional American left, is just he looking at Coach like he wants to make out with him. He's looking at him like he is just absolutely in love with the guy. I want to try to find a great screen cap for you guys. I'll let it run. Look at that. Oh my gosh, look at how dreamy he is. I love the way he calls Charlie Kirk a hate monger. So neither of these guys have ever seen a Charlie Kirk video, but here's what's interesting to me. Klein actually wrote a column, now that I think of it, after Charlie died, saying Charlie practiced politics the right way. And you would think he would just interject immediately and say, well, give me an example, but he doesn't do that. And of course he doesn't do that. They never do this. They never go and actually confront people. If you watched Charlie Kirk for a minute, you think, oh, well, he's not hateful. I mean, maybe I like his ideas, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm jealous that he's successful. Maybe I am irritated that he could be making a difference. There's lots of reasons to not have a great feeling for Charlie if you're on the left, but it's not that he's hateful. So you're a liar if you're saying that, or you're an ignoramus. So, and just to be able to go out there, New York Times podcast, and just say, he's a hate monger. And then just to have the host, who's a popular host and a columnist, New York Times, and best-selling author, look at you like you are so beautiful. You're so dreamy. Look, I'm not a homosexual, but if I was, what I would do, the first person I'd ask out is you, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Like, that's what it looks like. And it's so sick. It's a sickness. It's a sickness that these people have. So I'm very annoyed by it in general, but I've been wanting to bring that up because it's just very important that those of us who knew Charlie are very clear here that the last thing the guy stood for is hate. And then you see these terror attacks. I mean, Coates himself, he wrote this up at Breitbart News, that he suggested after October the 7th, he may have joined with Hamas because of their oppression. So this is a guy who writes basically on behalf of Black Americans, but he's not really writing for Black Americans. He's writing for white liberals like Ezra Klein. So white liberals who are at the New York Times, like he's the guy who is Coach's target audience. So he's a guy who makes white liberals feel good about themselves because they self-flagellate over race all the time. Here's another headline from Breitbart about a year ago. CBS News boss knocked their host, Tony DeKuppel, for asking Ta-Nehisi Coates tough questions on Israel because he's a big Palestine guy, which makes him a big Hamas guy. That's why people have got to see, this is a free plug, but it's for my friend Dinesh, who has luckily is an advertiser on the show, which is nice. But but his Dragon's Prophecy movie, he goes through some of this October 7th footage, some of which I'd never seen before, to get some new audio that no one's ever heard before. I mean, you just hate the Hamas so much because they're evil. That's the hate mongers, is Hamas. I said this in my interview with Dinesh earlier this week, but he plays this footage of a jihadi who's killed 10 Jews or something like that, and he's calling his dad, and they're weeping on the phone together in joy that they've killed innocent Jews. Really is a lot of evil among us, and it's just really important. Really important. We got to stand up to it. We got to fight back as best we can. Just you can't understate it enough. And so many of the evil people will declare the most peaceful and God-fearing among us. Charlie Kirk, who woke up every day thinking, how do I serve God and please God every day? That he's the one who's called the hate monger in this environment. And unfortunately, so many people in religious circles just don't do a good enough job in this regard. Here is what my Pope Leo, is up to. First American Pope. Let's see how he's doing.
I would now like to invite you to stand for the blessing of the waters.
So those of you who are not watching, this seems like what we're watching from Pope Leo is he is blessing some sort of a giant ice ball.
Lord of
and
life,
he
bless
is part of this, some sort of a green eco nonsense that he's doing with a bunch of pagan people who are worshiping Gaia.
soothe our grief.
So this is what is so
hope
remarkable to me, is that of
through
all the
Christ
evil
our
being
Lord.
done to Christians and to Jews as well on earth, that our Pope is time to do some sort of a pagan eco ritual where he's blessing an ice ball in the name of climate change. How could he have 5 minutes for this?
We engage in
he was also
commending
Dick Durbin, who is Dick Durbin's Illinois, right? So he's an Illinois senator, which is his home state, and for his 40 years of service. That's the whole problem with this country, is that we have people who are serving for too long. That we don't have Senate term limits, so that people are permanent members of our political class. So wow, so they got a close up now of melting ice. I mean, I will summon the number one environmental activist in the world to teach him how to give my opinion on Pope Leo in this case.
How dare you?
That's right, Greta. How dare you?
How dare you?
Yeah, she's good. She got arrested, I think, for something, or one of her Gaza flotillas got stopped. So anyway, it's disheartening. It's really disheartening because he just doesn't have time for this. There's too many people who need God, and the Catholic Church, to me, is, of course, that's what I believe, and I think that's the ultimate because of the tradition. I do feel like that is, with the pomp and circumstance and the music and just the history, I feel like that is the ultimate faith. In my view, I know there are others who differ in the audience. I respect you very much, but it's a terrible look. It's a terrible look, particularly at this moment. Especially when, we've got all this genocide going on against Christians in Africa, and then people are finally paying attention to it. We've been covering this at Breitbart for years, and yet it felt like over the weekend Bill Maher discovered it, and so then now people are talking about it, which is weird, but it's also great because, look, whatever gets attention to it, and now we're blessing ice balls and praising Dick Durbin. Okay, not good. All right, so let's see. Next up is the government shutdown. I'll give you a shutdown update for you. And so it is Yom Kippur, so there'll be no more Senate votes. So the shutdown will continue at least into tomorrow. And the debate the Republicans are in complete control over the debate. The Democrats can't decide whether or not they should own the fact that they caused the shutdown, because the Republicans are not giving health care for illegal aliens, even though that's what Maxine Waters said. She acknowledged that they want health care for illegal aliens, or to say that it's the Republicans' fault, or to say that everyone's going to die because of the shutdown. And I've clipped a bunch of clips for you just to give you a sense of the schizophrenic nature of the Democrats' messaging, which has been the theme since President Trump won. They have not had any leadership. They've not had any coherent messaging. Here is Pocahontas Elizabeth Warren doing the thing that I predicted would happen right away. Within 2 minutes of the shutdown, I posted sarcastically to X the Everything app that everyone is dead. Everyone is dead now because of the shutdown. Liz Warren finally did it. Here she is.
Bending the knee. Whatever Donald Trump wants, he gets from the Republicans, and the Republicans have the majority in the House and the Senate. So it's not like there's been any pushback on any single thing that Donald Trump has wanted. And that's a real problem for us already. But the other half of this is they're trying to find anything to talk about around the shutdown, to blame it on Democrats, so they don't have to talk about the 2/3 of seniors who are in nursing homes, a lot of them with serious health problems, half of them with Alzheimer's, who can just be pushed out on the street under the Republican bill. They don't want to talk about those brand new babies and their mamas who will lose access to health care. They do not want to talk about your neighbor who counts on a home health aide and who counts on having a wheelchair in order to try to live independently and can lose all of that. They don't want to talk about the tens of millions of families who are receiving notices this month saying, here's where your health care premiums were already too high, and here's where they're going to be thanks to the Republicans. There are going to be people who are going to have to make decisions about whether to make rent or pay for health insurance. There are going to be people who are just going to let their health insurance go. There are going to be people who are going to die because
it is. We knew it. They're going to die. Probably going to kill everyone. And so here's the thing. This is such a terrible, it's just a terrible platform for the Democrats to fight on, because they wrote the healthcare plan. This is Joe Biden's budget, and the law of the land is still Obamacare. By and large, I know there have been minor tweaks to it, but it's by and large, Obamacare is the prevailing the healthcare scheme that we have in this country. that was voted on by a lot of Democrats, a lot of the ones who want the shutdown. And it is the Joe Biden budget the Republicans are trying to extend for a few weeks to continue the appropriations negotiations. And the Democrats will not stand for it because they want healthcare for illegal aliens, as Maxine Waters admitted. Now you're saying Republicans are going to kill everyone. No, the healthcare is already too expensive because of the Democrats. And if it gets more expensive, no one actually wants that. But I'll tell you one thing that's not making things any cheaper for the United States of America, the fact that you guys are not prioritizing, I don't know, the paychecks of service members over healthcare for illegal aliens. So military personnel are missing paychecks because the government shut down, but we're shutting down the government, admittedly by Maxine Waters, to get healthcare for illegal aliens. Then I don't know where you're trying to find your credibility here. Not a lot of it left. So I got a clip. I was looking forward to this so much. Sri Tanadar, the congressman who's trying to impeach Donald J. Trump. You got to say it like that. Donald J. Trump. Every time. He cut a shutdown video that was just irresistible. And here it is for you.
Returning back to Detroit this morning after the Republicans failed to show up in the U.S. House. We got to make sure Americans have the health care that they need. And if that means we got to shut this government down, so be it.
So here you go. We're going to shut the government down. We got to shut the government down. He said it. And you got to can we zoom in, Missy? I don't know if we can zoom in, but I'm zooming in. Like his eyebrows. I mean, that is, look, when you're on camera a lot, there's a temptation to do and style the eyebrows. I've done the past. I've not styled my eyebrows in many years. They just kind of roll. But these is just you guys can see it now. It looks like someone took one of those felt pens that you use to write on a dry erase board and just drew the eyebrows on. And again, it's when you're 30 years older than I am, like I got a little salt and pepper going. It's like you want to have a little salt and pepper. You can't do the hair dye so much that it's darker than when you were a teenager. And I think he does the highlights too. I think he puts the highlights in his hair. I mean, what a look this guy's got. Awesome. Awesome stuff. And he admits it. I'm going to play that last bit again.
Got to make sure Americans have the health care that they need. And if that means we got to shut this government down, so be it.
You know, one of the things that's really important to note is that the Democrats have been very open that they want health care for illegal aliens. So Trump is suggesting that they don't want health care for illegal aliens, and that's how Trump is suggesting they do, and that's why they're trying to shut the government down. The Democrats are denying it. Al Franken was out there saying flat out that the Democrats deny it, that they don't want health care for illegal aliens. But it is crystal clear that they do, because you might recall that there was that debate. It was an MSNBC debate in the primary debate, and the question was from Savannah Guthrie: raise your hand if your government plan would provide health insurance for undocumented immigrants. And every single person raised their hand. I know it's ringing a bell, but every single person raised their hand when they did this during the Democrat debate on MSNBC, asked by Savannah Guthrie back in the primary. So you have to acknowledge that they've always had this policy. And so it's whether or not it's the reason why they're shutting it down now. Well, Maxine Waters said so. So you guys owned up to it. Do I have this clip? I'm trying to play this clip for you.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
And the crowd cheers. Wow. See, that's good. That's why you play it, because you hear the cheer. So look, guys, we're trying to do the show visual. We're trying to make it a YouTube Rumble. Please subscribe on YouTube and Rumble, whichever you prefer. It is really nice because we do a lot of visual elements of the show. But you guys just seeing their hands go up, seeing the crowd cheer, really, really important. And it just reminds you of where they are. So it is. This is why the Republicans can be fearless here, why they can do all the memes. We do the sombrero memes. The reason why we can continue to do this is because we know where they stand. They stand for the illegal aliens getting health care over American service members getting their paycheck. Boom. Done. Got it. Okay, Congressman McBride put out a pretty good video. I pulled this a couple days ago. I've got a chance to play it, but let's see what Congressman McBride is doing to try to create more drama. A real drama queen in the Congress. Check this one.
We're barreling towards a shutdown. All my Democratic colleagues are here. I'm going to go search for my Republican colleagues. Republicans, y'all know there's a government shutdown. Republicans, anyone here? Is Mike Johnson in here? Let's see if some Republicans are in here. Are there any Republicans in here?
So those of you who can't see it, this is the guy who impersonates a woman in the Congress who is searching the halls of Congress. Who knows what time it is, just to try to make some sort of viral video. I mean, they're so cringy. Just remember how much they're investing in social media. Remember how important it is for them to make sure that social media, their social media presence improves. And this is what they got so far. They've got a guy who impersonates a woman running around going, Republicans. So affected, so silly. And that's why the Republicans are fired up, and they should be. They really should be. Check this out. Check out what was going on CNN as they react to Trump continuing to double down on all of the memes. Well, why don't I play a meme? Let's do a palate cleanser. Let's play a meme, and then we'll play CNN's reaction.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
That's so right. It's so good. I'll keep playing it because it annoys them so much. We talked to Eric Trump about this in yesterday's show, which was just absolutely fantastic. I hope all of you get around to it, even if you got to catch up over the weekend. But 40 straight minutes with Eric Trump, who is just, I mean, he's unbelievable. I've always been a huge fan, and I think that he's got a huge, huge future in business and probably eventually in politics too. But he was laying out, he explained the whole Trump 2028 meme, and it can't stop them from getting triggered. So here we go. Let's play some triggerage from CNN.
So we played sound from Vice President Vance, not just defending that AI racist video of Minority Leader Jeffries wearing a sombrero, but also like celebrating that video. And it was playing on a loop in the briefing room today. What are you hearing from the inside about that?
It was not only just playing on a loop in the briefing room. If you've never been in the press briefing room, for those who haven't, there are loudspeakers overhead so you can hear announcements or what's being said, or if there's an event going on with the president in the Rose Garden, for example. They were playing that mariachi music as well over the loudspeakers for all the press that was coming in and out of the White House today inside the press briefing room. It just kind of gives you a window, John, into how they're dealing with this and how they believe they have the upper hand when it comes to the messaging here, and also kind of how things have changed from the first time Donald Trump was in office. I mean, there was a shutdown then. I remember all 35 days of it. As the president said at the beginning, he'd be proud to shut the government down. And then it ended, obviously, with him not getting the money for his border wall. This time, you know, there's a moment here. They're being heavily criticized over these posts by the president, by Democrats. And instead of backing off or apologizing for it, they're leaning into it, and they're playing the music over loudspeakers and on repeat inside the briefing room because they simply don't care about that criticism.
Boom.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Caitlin. Yeah, they don't care about that criticism. That's it. That was the line I was waiting for. So they don't. Because the media is not credible anymore. Again, after the way they handled the Charlie Kirk assassination, I think prior to that, the assassination of the murder of the Ukrainian immigrant in North Carolina, I think was equally bad, or almost as bad. Let's say slightly lower stakes, but nearly as bad. After that, I feel like people just completely wash their hands of the media, and that's why Gallup's got to pull out. And is this today or yesterday? When is this? This is a fresh poll. This is today. Trusted media new low, 28% in the U.S. Gallup, the oldest poll around, as Chris Matthews would say. Republicans' confidence in mass media reports are fully and accurately and fairly now at 8%. We know it's not accurate. What I worry about, though, is as we enter the age of AI, is we're still dependent on establishment media. We're still rely on Wikipedia for certain things, Google. All of these are it's all fake news. And that's why you got to go to Breitbart.com, get the Breitbart.com app. It's the best thing you can do for yourself because we are meticulous in our fact checking, as careful as it gets. People magazine had a headline: the White House will continue construction of 90,000 square foot ballroom during the government shutdown. Chuck Schumer immediately amplified the story, saying yes to ballrooms, no to health care for Americans. Got it. And my friend Vince Colonnese pointed out that Trump is personally paying for it. And he doesn't even take a government paycheck, and he's paying for this anyway. But I'll tell you, do you think everyone who read the headline in People magazine gets it? I don't think so. So Trump is going to take advantage of the government shutdown. He's still doing it. He's got a meeting today. It's happening, I believe, right as I'm recording, with Russ Vought, who is the resident slash and burn member of the Trump of the Trump administration. I would say one of the most badass of Trump's appointees. And here is the truth bomb Trump's unleashed. I have a meeting today with Russ Vought. He of Project 2025 fame to determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are political scam, he recommends to be cut and whether or not these cuts will be temporary or permanent. I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. They are not stupid people, so maybe this is their way of wanting to quietly and quickly make America great again. President DJT. This is something that I saw kicked around on X, the Everything app. I didn't see a lot of evidence for it, but there's some people on the right, maybe some I don't know, white-pilled folks, I guess maybe that's the expression, suggested that actually Democrats want all this stuff to happen and they just can't, face up to it publicly, but they want Trump's agenda to go through. So maybe that's it, because Vought is going to point out parts of the government that should flat out be cut, just cut forever. And he's going to take advantage of this opportunity to get that on the forefront of Trump's imagination and what he can do. So it's a great are the deal troll. Trump acting like he's enjoying the shutdown. He's doing the memes. More sombreros coming. All that's great. It's just fantastic. And we live for it. We've always wanted this. We've always wanted this moment. We got the Democrats can't decide if they owned up to if it's their fault or not. Shri Danadar and Maxine Waters think they did it. But Chuck Schumer acts like it's the Republicans who did it. Elizabeth Warren acts like it's the Republicans who did it. They're so leaderless, rudderless, and their messaging is such garbage. All right. We're doing some alternatives, though, as I noted with Trump. But he's also surging federal law enforcement to Memphis now. So he's going to expand on this. I would love him to go to every dangerous city. I saw a fake poll saying LA is the second safest city in the country or something. It was just like, literally no one even who lives here believes that. So they got to push back on Trump's crime crackdown because he could really clean up the country in a major way. And Stephen Miller has spoken about this, and we've clipped some of it for you. Check this out.
To the Memphis Police Department, to the officers that I see sitting in front of me, we are about to provide you with a level of support you cannot even imagine. This isn't just a task force. This is a all-of-government unlimited support operation. ATF, DEA, FBI, ICE, Department of War, every resource we have. And they're not going to be sitting behind a desk at a keyboard. We are sending in real cops with guns and badges to go out with you on the street every single night making arrests. These are people who have taken down drug cartels, kingpins, the worst criminal offenders in the United States, standing with you shoulder to shoulder to shoulder. All we ask from you is to show up at roll call every single night with your brothers and sisters in the federal government and to go out and get the criminals off the street. And if you do that, I pledge to you, we will liberate this city from the criminal element that has plagued it for generations. This is not just a strategy shift. This is an attitude shift. We are not going to live in an environment anywhere where there is a street that belongs to a criminal, where there is a neighborhood that belongs to a gang, where there is any physical space anywhere that belongs to anyone other than the law-abiding citizens and families of Memphis. The idea that there is a square inch of block in this city where a citizen doesn't feel safe is unacceptable. This is Memphis. This is the United States of America, and all that bullshit is done. It's over. It's finished.
The only downside of playing Stephen Miller on the show is that I can't interrupt him because he's so thorough. He's so clear. You can't interrupt him because you just want to hear him roll. If he ever gets out of government, I think he'll have a great talk show. He's a real veteran. I used to listen to him on the air when I was a teenager. Just marvel at his rhetorical gifts. He just speaks clearly and he writes clearly, and I think he thinks in those coherent. He really thinks in almost in like essay form. There are some people who think really well in tweet form, soundbite form, and there's some people who think better in paragraph form. And he really is almost like an essay when he thinks of an idea. And so I mentioned LA because this is what the mayor of LA, this is how she thinks of crime. Contrast that with what Stephen Miller just laid out with Trump administration is going to do. Here's what our standard bearer, Karen Bass, who let the city burn down. Let's see what she's up to.
Around racial profiling of Latinos, which we refer to here as the hunting of Latinos, that has created a blanket of fear around this city and has had detrimental impacts to our economy. We had 2 court decisions, and then the Supreme Court basically gave a green light to racial profiling. They are trying to dial us back to the 1940s, and that is a tragedy for the American people.
So, Mayor Bash, you talked about the shutdown and the impact that it is having. This is going to go on.
So she says that we're hunting Latinos, whereas a Antifa terrorist just literally hunted down my friend and killed them on TV, on video, just a couple of weeks ago. And it's such a tone-deaf language. Aaron Burnett, who was the host there, was just going to move on and talk about other stuff. But what she should ask is, who is the legal citizens that Trump's deported? Because there's no one. Even Abrego Garcia is the exception that proves the rule, because the Trump administration acknowledged they deported him initially by mistake, but it wasn't that he was an illegal alien and couldn't have been deported. He did get wrapped up in something he shouldn't have got wrapped up in. They said that I guess they said if they could have done again, it was, it wasn't on purpose that they got Garcia, which is why the left seized on it. But overall, he still was an illegal alien. And then the more you looked into him, the more he was clearly a criminal. So, by the way, a judge denied him his bid for asylum, so he's got 30 days to appeal. So they're still working that Abrego Garcia thing. But the Trump administration now, I think, trying to deport him to Africa or something. So, Uganda. They want to send him to a Uganda. And then Eswatini, small country in southern Africa. The Eswatinian. Kill my Abrego Garcia. Guy was clearly doing human smuggling and then had a child sex offense, apparently. So it's just not a good guy. He's a left champion. The Maryland Man, they're still doing the Maryland Man stuff in some of the establishment media. So, and then I'm supposed to believe that LA has become a safe city when the mayor defends criminal illegal aliens over its citizens. We're living in an era of total media disinformation. You really just need to encourage people in your lives to get their news and information from deeply trustworthy sources. That's why my number one obligation to you, the audience, and of course my reading audience, Breitbart News, is to be accurate as whatever humanly possible to the greatest extent possible. ICE is also going to continue arresting convicted killers and child rapists despite the shutdown. So Trump's got his priorities straight, and especially the child sex offense stuff, just making that a top priority, not stopping the trains on that one. So it's good. They're so confused, they're so lost, and we're so clear that they're defending all the trans stuff. They're defending the illegal alien criminals. They can't decide they shut down the government or not. A couple culture war items that are positive. The big Netflix boycott's taken place because of Coco Melon, which features interracial gay dads attempting to raise a baby as transgender. So this is on Netflix. I'll tell you, the Netflix top brass, I bet they're not even aware of this. So that's why these campaigns can make a big difference, because you start alerting the C-suite. The C-suite's getting, they're meeting with the biggest Hollywood stars trying to get deals done. And they're getting interrupted because Coco Melon, a show for preschoolers, has a gay groomers that are transing their kid in the cartoon for toddlers. Then they don't want that distraction, so it might work. So I'm all for it. Look, here's the thing. We're fighting a culture war against the left. And if it's nonviolent, I'm for it. And 10 years after they started boycotting Breitbart, I just have no sympathy for anyone who has to endure a few headaches. So they tried to strangle us by cutting off our advertisers, not because we were getting anything wrong, but because we were telling truths they didn't like how Donald Trump had a very powerful message. So I'm way into it, and let's see if we can make a difference. But a lot of people canceling their Netflix. Netflix is the worst of the streaming platforms, right? I mean, it's got the worst stuff on it. So it's got the worst variety. It's getting expensive. And I'll tell you, Coco Melon, I'm proud of this one. Proud of this one. I'm going to pull a muscle, pat myself on the back here. But Coco Melon was banned in the Marlowe household for being stupid, stupid content. There's a lot of smart kid stuff out there, and this is why the Disney boycotts are harder, because They got Bluey, which is the best kid show of all time, not even close. It crushes any of the. If you haven't tried it, whatever kid show you grew up with, it's not as smart as Bluey. It's not as wholesome as Bluey. Bluey's the best show. It's not even close. So they got that on Disney, and then all the classic Disney movies are still great, and a lot of them are not woke, which is great, or even anti-woke. And they got some other clever stuff on there. Like they got the show Little Einsteins, which is really good. So they've got some good stuff there. So that makes the boycott harder when they do a gay Buzz Lightyear, which they did do. So, but Netflix has no redeeming characteristics, and they got all this stupid content. Coco Melon is stupid. So you got to admit it, parents in the audience who watch it. All right, how are we doing here? Is that all? Did I want to accomplish anything else today? I got one last thing. I'll throw out quickly. Lake County in Florida becomes the first to approve Charlie Kirk Memorial Highway. That's awesome. So I should have mentioned this probably earlier in the show, but that's great. So Florida continues to show the way. Governor Ron DeSanctimonious, a bad presidential candidate and an absolutely fantastic governor, the best governor in the country, as far as I can tell. All right, I was on Laura Ingram's show yesterday, and we were talking about a character that I wanted to introduce to the audience because not on my radar yet, but is now. And this is a man who goes by Maybe a Girl. Maybe a Girl is his drag name. And apparently this person's name is actually George Pudlow. He is a politician in the Silver Lake area of California, and he's running for the state Senate. And Laura had me on to talk about it. And I'll tell you, I did a deep dive on this character just to show you the mind of the left. And I think that we clipped you can find the whole thing online, but we clipped my commentary on this to Laura. So I'll share this with you, then I'll give you some more thoughts on Maybe a Girl.
All right, Alex, you're the Californian. You got to defend this. We always love having you on for these stories. Is this really the state of things on the left coast?
Well, first of all, Laura, maybe a girl. No, definitely a man. Let's just say that flat out. And this guy is likely to show up in the Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show. So that's a called shot. You heard it here first in the Ingram angle. So this is possible that he could win. He runs for a bunch of stuff. His name's apparently George Pudlow, but I don't know for sure because Wikipedia doesn't allow dead naming, and I didn't want to dig too hard. It didn't feel like it was worth too much time. But it could happen because he's running in a place called Silver Lake. And Silver Lake is peak childless millennial in Los Angeles. It's a very trendy place to live. It is kind of grungy and dirty and unpleasant most of the time, but it's also very walkable and vibey and bohemian, and they got a lot of great restaurants. Shout out Courage Bagel. So it's one of those things where it could conceivably happen because a hard leftist is going to win this area. So who knows? So those of you who missed the visuals again, I mean, this person is a real true drag fanatical person, and they're using this to get attention. So it was funny. If you watch the full clip, Laura took issue with me saying that Silver Lake is dirty. No, it's very dirty. Silver Lake is dirty. I'm right. So it's the much love to Laura and respect, but Silver Lake is a dirty area of LA. But it's one of those places where it's just very vibey. Like all the men wear the floppy ball caps with like the flat bill, like the dad cap, but floppy. They don't bend the bill. They all do that. And everyone's got a lot of those tiny tattoos and a lot of the bone in your nose piercings. And so they're perfectly nice. They're just, not my type of people, and they don't keep up a clean city. But they got great restaurants, great bagels. But so George Pudlow, a.k.a. Maybe a Girl, is running there for the Senate. And I was going through his background, the state Senate in California, and the platform is just all generic leftism: free housing, free healthcare, free college tuition. So that's a handout to the universities. More public transit. LA is terrible public transit. Universal basic income, so socialism, if not communism. Universal pre-K. Obviously, a guy doesn't have kids, wants to do the handouts for the pre-K. And he's a big advocate for the drag story hour. So really wants to make sure there's lots of drag story hours, which is grooming. So that's grooming children into the trans contagion. And just LGBTQIA, eco-justice, legalizing drugs, racial justice, whatever that means. And, of course, abolishing ICE, so pro-illegal alien stuff, pro-crime. For some reason, this character also wants to free Palestine. I don't know from what. Hopefully Hamas, but I assume it's actually from the Jews. That's just, if I dig longer, I'm sure that's what it is. And also, what does freeing Palestine have to do with the California Senate? Nothing. but he wants to do it. He wants Palestine free, I guess. So, and he uses the fascist language where he calls all of us fascist, even after the Kirk assassination, where the assassin considered Charlie a fascist, which justified him killing Charlie in his own mind. So, but here's the trick. Here's the thing that I wanted to say I did not get to in the interview that I want to take the time on the Marlowe podcast to discuss. In interviews, maybe a girl, aka George Pudlow, has said something that's very important. He knows the best way to get out his message is with drag. That's what gets attention. This is how the left is actually gaining political traction right now, is with this performance art. It's not through beauty or godliness or truth. It's by impersonating a woman if you're a man. So all of his politics are generic left-wing progressive, which I think is kind of chaos/regressive, road to authoritarianism. But the progressive platform just down the board. But how does he differentiate himself in a town filled with woke leftists? With drag, with transing. So that's the modern left. So it's not the radical left anymore. This is the mainstream view now, is that how do I differentiate myself? It's not with having a more moderate platform. It's not being more articulate. No, it's with painting my face so it looks like a woman and putting on a wig. So that's it. That's the state of play here in California, the Golden State. Oh, we laugh so we don't cry. All right, that's today's show. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to John Cassio for pulling clips. And thanks to all of you in this terrific audience for telling 10,000 friends and family members about The Marlowe Show. Don't forget to subscribe, leaving 5-star reviews, leaving comments. All that helps engagements, helps with the various algorithms. Big stuff afoot on the show in the coming days. And I thank you for sticking with me. All right, talk to you tomorrow.